Well, good. Oh, hang on. What's happened here? There we. Oh, God knows. God knows. I'm going to have to move over slightly. Sorry. Last minute preparations, as always, going wrong. How are we all doing today? It is Sunday, the 17th of October, 2021. We're back in the podding shed, and joining me today, hopefully it's going to turn out. Yep, I've got little Roxy here today, so she's been asleep a lot today. So if you hear any whining in the background, it's her. Partly because she's not on my lap and she's getting a bit too heavy. So let's have a look and see if anybody is actually out there, and then we'll get the show started. So first of all, Ballycillian Allotment Man is here and joining us. He says, "Good evening, Richard." Philly SPB, hello to you. Adrian has joined, of course. Hello to you. Hannah Jones, good evening to you. She says, "Hello, Richard," and "Hello, gardeners." Oracle Ards Allotment is saying, "Hello, Army. Good evening to you." Who else have we got? Anybody else? Stuart Jackson has joined. Good evening to you. Hope you are well. Hargrave Gas, evening all. Good to have another conversation to look forward to tonight, as always. Rebecca Hawkins, good evening to you. Hope you are well. Ernie, good evening to you. Hope you are also well. Andy the Collector, evening all. Good evening to you. And Turbo Stream has just came in as well. Good evening to you too. I'm going to have to sort this camera out in a minute because I don't quite understand why it's twisted around or something. Oh, and then I'm getting something coming down the side. I'll figure that out a bit later on. Don't worry about it. So what have I been up to over this last week here at the Veg Grower Podcast? Allotment and garden. Well, the other day we sowed some cauliflower, a variety called All Year Round, which will hopefully provide us some early summer cauliflowers. That's what I'm looking to try and get from it. I always find cauliflowers are probably one of the hardest plants to grow, one of the hardest vegetables to grow. But what I like to do with cauliflower is a sow them at this time, and then I find that they tend to bolt. They tend to get, well, the trouble begins when they get too hot. So actually, by growing them now, we tend to avoid that hot period. What else have I done? Yesterday, the wife woke up and she wanted to hack the garden, a lot of the old foliage, the dying back stuff. So she got on, hacked that back, cleared out a lot of the old the brambles, hacked back some of the neighbours' hedges that come over our way, and basically had a good tidy up. That, of course, followed up running over everything with a lawnmower, which I think I've said many, many times. I shred everything that way, and that then leaves me with some of the best compost that I can ever produce. I'm not happy with how if I just sit like this, it seems better. And then what else did I do? Today I went down the allotment and I finally have got in my garlic. Those that listen to the podcast on Monday will know I was talking about growing garlic and onions and everything else. And finally today I've got my garlic in. The elephant garlic has gone in. The 4 varieties of garlic have gone in. Gave that a good water. Hopefully that'll get that going. I've also sown some more green manures into the bed that I dug over last week. So hopefully that's going to get that all off to a very good start. Let me know what you guys have been up to in your own allotments or your own gardens in the comments. Don't be afraid to comment. I know there's a lot of people sitting there who don't always comment, and that's fine. Don't feel you have to comment, but it's nice to hear from you anyway. So, should work. Why not working? The phone line is open if you want to call in. It is 07307 135 174. Or if you want to zap yourself in, the link is going up in the comments. So let's see who else has joined. Ian Suggett has joined. Hello, Dad. Hope you are well. Digwell Green Fingers has also joined. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Amanda Joy, good evening to you. Hope you are well as well. Rebecca is saying, Well done. Still got to get my garlic in. Well, there's plenty of time. I do like to do mine a bit on the early side, but there's plenty of time to get your garlic in. Don't panic. Yeah, don't panic. Paul Jordan, evening. Good evening to you. Lovely to see you. And Money Boots, good evening to you. Hope you are well. And then Graham Arnold has also came in. Good evening to you. So let me bring up, if you want to call in, I'll bring up the banner across the bottom of the screen. Just so 07307 135 174. Now, I've got a collection of photos that have came in, which we'll go through a bit later. But tonight, the subject that we said we were going to discuss was going to be money-saving tips that you have learned or you use for your garden. So if you've got any money-saving tips that you want to share, then please do let us know in the comments, call in, or via zapping in, as I called it. Now, I think one of the biggest money-saving tips that I have, if only I could figure out why this camera's twisted. I wonder if I move this whole lot, will that make... No, it's not that. The biggest money-saving tip that I have has got to be make your own compost. Make your own compost. You don't need to spend money on compost bins, but it helps. You can make your own compost bins out of a load of pallets wood. You can make your compost out of a load of wood. But all that clippings, all that waste is not waste. You throw it in your compost bin and it will turn into this beautiful black gold, as it's also known as, because it does produce a useful, fantastic growing media that feeds our plants and produces better plants later in the year. Best of all, it's free to do. Now, some people will say there's composting techniques and some people have different ways of producing compost. And some people will say not to add this and not to add that. Here's my take on it. I add everything that was once living. Cardboard, grass clippings, prunings, everything that was once living goes into my compost bins. It will get very hot. It will get very well, it can get very hot if it's chopped up nicely. I do chop a lot of my stuff up nicely with the lawnmower or the shredder. Don't have to do that. That's just the way I do it because I find it produces a better compost. And even old gloves, they can go in a compost bin. If they were once alive, they will go in the compost bin and they will rot down. That's what we're ultimately trying to achieve with this. Sorry, I'm giving Roxy. Let's see if she's going to look a bit more photogenic today. Giving Roxy a few bits of snacks at the same time. So let's have a quick look at the comments. Digwell Green Fingers. I converted 3 cauliflower, dexter, celery, onion, garlic, and potato into a cream of cauliflower soup. All my own veggies. Ooh, that sounds delicious. This week from Turbo Stream, I dug out a South-sown berberis that was taken over a bit of the rhubarb patch. Yeah, some weeds do have a tendency to take over, and especially when they're not ones that you've sown yourself, which I always think is annoying. Why is it weeds seem to grow better than your own plants? That's sometimes how I feel. There you go. Sounds good, Digwell from Rebecca. Yes, Digwell's soup recipe does sound delicious. I'm hoping we should discuss some soup recipes one week, shouldn't we? Stream, I made a leaf mold bin out from some soft UPVC soffit boards. So yes, leaf mold. That's something that actually we could talk about as a money-saving tip, which is kind of relevant at this time of year. Now, leaf mold. What is leaf mold? It is basically all the leaves that have fallen down from trees, rotted down. You go into a wood, you go into anywhere where there's trees, and that top layer will be leaf mold. And it's this beautiful black crumbly surface, which I just think, excuse you, will it is such a fantastic source of nutrient. Well, actually, it's not very low or very high in nutrients. It's pretty poor in nutrients. But what it is good for is as a soil conditioner, improving your soil. And yeah, this year I'm going to be going to collect lots and lots of leaves to take down the allotment in order to make leaf mold. And as it's a free mulch, as it's a good mulch as well, I'll be using it for that. Oracle Arts Allotment. Only tip I have is don't let your wife on the plot between mad ideas, killing veg pulling seeds grown and talking. Yeah, yeah. I don't. I want to say I don't have that problem. Amanda doesn't always come on the allotment with me, but sometimes she does, and it has been known that she pulls out the wrong stuff. I try not to tell her off. I try not to tell her off because she's helping. Um, Instead, I just try and, oh, well, it happened. It's my fault for not telling you. I tend to blame myself, even though quietly inside, I'm a bit mad at her. This week, I had a complete tidy up just and planning as always. It's always about planning, isn't it? Always about planning, especially at this time of year. Thinking about what we're going to do throughout the winter or next year. I particularly find myself planning of where I'm going to be building new beds or what I call the infrastructure work that I like to do over the winter months, such as building beds, improving paths, that sort of thing, when we have a bit more time for that sort of thing. Money Boots, reuse old compost by adding nutrients, extra nutrients to it at the start of each season. That's a very good tip, actually. And I've actually done that myself many times. So, you always get compost left in the bottom of a pot that is basically no good. I just simply, as Nigel has hinted at as well, just add some extra nutrients, some grow more, bloodfish and bone, perhaps a bit of fresh compost as well, mix it in, and it saves on buying compost each year. Although you still need compost each year, but if you can add some of your own homemade stuff, even better. Rebecca Hawkins, I get free manure from my local stables. They want it gone. Sorry. I love it for my veg and flowers. Win-win. That's often the case with many stables, that they do want it gone, and they often have to pay for it to be removed. Although some stables have cottoned on that they can charge for it. Quite often they charge for delivery, however, and I think that's a fair thing to pay. But if you can get it for free, it may need rotting down. Again, manure is a life force in the garden in many ways. I tend to use a lot of chicken manure because I've got the chickens, and that it makes fantastic manure, but on small scale. Stuart Jackson, we have been preparing carrot and coriander soup today. Sounds delicious. In fact, we've been doing parsnip soup as well, or I've dug up some parsnips. We had a roast dinner today, but we dug up parsnips yesterday. We're going to make some parsnip soup, and we had roasted parsnips for our roast beef today. Jacqueline Arnold, hello to you. Hope you are well. We made leaf mold in those bags you get to grow potatoes in by mistake. We raked them up, stored them, then found the bags behind the shed 2 years later. Well, there you go. If it works, it works. So I wouldn't complain about that. Any way you can make leaf mold, it's not a waste. Not a waste at all. I know where my mother lives, outside her house, they get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of leaves just fall down every year, and I'm going to go there and grab some of it. Digwell, I used some horse manure, but it wasn't well rotted. I grew a bed of grass. Yeah, that is a risk. I do find some horse manure does contain a bit of grass seeds, which is why I've stopped using it as much. But I'm waiting. We used to have deliveries of horse manure to our allotment. I'm waiting for that to happen again so I can start grabbing some of that and let that rot down in my compost heaps. Turbo Stream, my leaf mold bin is half full of half composted leaves already. Wow, here we go. I'm only just starting to think we can start collecting leaf mold. And there we go. And Turbo Stream's leaves are, well, his bin is half full and half rotted already. Don't worry, the divorce paper have been talked about sometimes. This was Oracle saying, "Don't let the wife loose on his allotment," which is, yeah. I'm not gonna. I'll probably get in trouble if I say too much. Jacqueline, old compost is fine for bulbs. Absolutely, yeah. Or what I like to do with old compost as well is I actually use it as a mulch. So I place it over something like my rhubarb or my some of my beds. I actually find that if it's the compost you take out of pot, you know, sometimes it can become a bit of a root ball. I did this yesterday, funny enough. I let my chickens calm down. I let my chickens go loose on that, and they tend to shred it all up and spread it all around everywhere. So I don't have to do as much work. And just my little way of saving a bit more time. But of course, not everybody has chickens. Right. She's got to be in here with me today because Amanda had a bit of trouble with her last Sunday. So, Ballycillian allotment man, my tip would be to buy what you need at winter time as the prices go up when the new season starts. In fact, what I find is when kids go back to school, there's a good chance then to save a lot of money, particularly in places like Wilkinson's. They have a tendency to sell a lot of their stuff off cheap. And you can go and buy something like a pack of 100 plastic labels for 25p. So highly recommend that. You know, go to the shop at the right time. I'm getting really annoyed with this camera. Sorry. Good evening, everyone from Beatrice. Lovely to see you. Rebecca, what's everyone using to store leaf mold in? So you could just do, quite simply, some plastic bin liners, just put a few holes in them, and throw those bags behind his shed. I'm not a lover of that personally. What I've done is I've made basically almost like a compost bin, but I've used 4 posts in the corner and made it into a square, if you like, just out of these posts, and then covered that in chicken wire. And that has worked quite well for me as a leaf mold bin, almost like another compost bin. And then just cover that over with a bit of carpet or something at the end of the season. It all rots down. Yeah, a compost bin, bags, anything like that is what you need to store leaf mold in. But as who was it, Turbo Stream, he's made his out of old soffits that he's obviously got hold of, and if it, you know, like so many things, if it works, it works. You are, girl. Money Boots, team up with other growers and exchange plants. Cut down space required for seedlings. That's a great idea, actually. Yeah, have a chat with other growers, exchange plants, exchange cuttings, exchange seeds. You know, I tend to grow a lot of my stuff from seeds. It's a lot more work. It's a lot harder to do. But let's say I'm growing a particular type of tomato and somebody else wants that. We could potentially swap tomato plants by doing that. Toby String, we have a massive pile of leaves from last year by the bottom gate of the plot. I collect 2 barrow loads, every visit. And Digger, all my old compost goes on top of my beds as I'm no dig. Yeah, that's something similar to what I do as well. So I have been sent quite a few videos from somebody who's in the audience today. I'm not going to show them all, but some of them actually relate to what we're talking about today. I'm going to save some of the others for next week, but let's go for the first one. And this is a money-saving tip, if I remember correctly.
This is another one of my money-saving ideas. I save all my egg shells and I put them in the oven. Once we turn the oven off, we put them in for sort of an hour as the oven's cooling down. And then I just break them up like this. And we use them instead of slug pellets. I've used them for a couple of years. They're not 100%, but they're better than using slug pellets that can harm hedgehogs or birds. So I think this is a good alternative. There are other things. You can use sheep's wool. You can use dog. If you've got a pet dog and you brush him a lot, use his hair to go around. They just don't like anything rough. So that's one of my tips. Speak to you soon.
Sorry, Sly's trying to adjust the camera again. Because I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. My camera just seems to have shifted right before we went live. And Digwell, was it Digwell? Is it me or is Richard just out of focus? You're right. I think I am slightly out of focus. It's focusing on this instead of me, and because it's shifted. And I've just tried to shift it again, and it just falls back. I can't. There's something going on, so I'm not going to fiddle around too much. I don't want to adjust the microphone just yet because that'll make a bit of noise. Stuart Jackson, who sent in that video about the eggshells, which is a great money-saving tip, isn't it? Old eggshells. Let them dry in an oven that's just cooling down. This went up, I think it was in the group he mentioned about it, or somebody did. Just let them in the oven while that cools down, and then use that as slug repellent or a form of slug repellent. As I said, it doesn't always work, but it does work to a certain extent. Oracle Arts, in the sort of tool, you never save anything unless you set a budget on what you can spend every month, as you always see new stuff you want. That's actually a very, very good point. Yeah, there's always new stuff that you want. There's always items that are appealing, or you go into a garden center and all of a sudden you want that new plant or you want that new pack of seeds, and it's very, very easy to get very carried away. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet and just buy the plants because that's what you want. But going back to what Nigel Muddy Boots tip as well sort of said, instead of buying plants, perhaps one person that you're friends with could buy a plant, and you could all chip in, buy that plant, and then everyone takes cuttings or something as another idea to save a bit of money. I think that could work quite well if you've got people that you can do that with in your community. Digwell, good tip with eggshells in the oven, especially if they are your own farm shop brought due to the salmonella. Yeah, I think that is a very good tip. We do go through a lot of we do go through a lot of eggs in this house, partly because we do have chickens, so we're always producing eggs, and we got the quails. So the quails are not being used, or we get rid of the quails, as I've said before. And all those eggshells, I mean, we compost a lot of them, but they are a good source of calcium as well, which plants need. And you can pot them down to a powder in some cases, but as Stuart did in that video, just chopping them up, putting them in the oven, chop them up, and sprinkle that around your plants. It'll deter any of the slugs and snails. Oracle says, good idea, but I wouldn't want the wife to know I can use the oven. Well, just ask the wife to do it after she's cooked your dinner then. That may be a way around it, as far as I can see. Ian Meadows has joined. Evening all, sorry I'm late. I've got a photo from Ian that I'm going to go through in a bit later on. He's actually... there's of course the jokey photos that we get from Ian, but he's taken a step up in the gardening world. Digwell thought his eyes were playing up because of the focusing. No, it's focusing on this. I can see it. It's just shifting slightly, and I don't know why. Rebecca, let's face it, gardening is not a money-saving hobby. I'm always having far too many naughty spends. That's true. We are always spending money. I'm particularly bad at it. I have actually told myself I'm only buying one thing every month now, partly for the podcast. As you know, there was the pair of boots last month. There was the garden steak, the dog steak this month. Just to test these things out and see if they're actually worth buying or if they are any use. I think I've got the garden sieve a couple of months ago as well, but I won't be... Sometimes it's a bit of a waste of money, I think, buying these things, because like the garden sieve, I used it for that first month and I didn't use it that much. I haven't used it since, in all honesty. It just sat there not doing much. So was that worth buying? I can think of 1,000,001 other things like that as well. But it's very difficult to know if it's worth spending your money on it or not, unless you actually go and do it. I've thought of many things I've bought over the years that I thought were going to be a brilliant idea, going to save time, I'm going to use it all the time, used it once and never got used. And that's probably where it's worth. Another good place to save some money as well is that, that we do need to investigate items that, do we really need it? Is it worth it? And so on and so on. I always find until I do it, I never know. So go on to one of my other money saving tips that I have come up with for tonight's show. Now, I've mentioned making compost, and we're adding leaf mold to that, and reusing old compost, which wasn't my tip, but that's another one that I do. Now, one of my other tips is that I tend to use for my plant labels is these little white plant labels. But what I do is I write on those labels what seeds I'm sowing in pencil. Just dropped my pencil as I was going to grab that there. I write on there in pencil. One, the pencil doesn't wash off or get wasted. It'll be there right up until I remove it. But two, I can use a rubber and just rub off that pencil and then reuse those labels. Some of the labels I've had for about 10 years and they're still going pretty well. They do get a bit, some of them can anyway, get a bit brittle after a while. But on a whole, I find they mostly last pretty well. So yeah, using labels and using a pencil on those labels is another money saving tip that I want to share. If you can save money on some things, then I got money to spend on the must-have, like my new purchase, the Veggie Pod, which I am ordering this week. Veggie Pod. Funny enough, I know somebody else that has bought a Veggie Pod. All I'm going to say, Stuart, I'm not allowed to mention it out in public, but members of my supporters club, I put a podcast out a couple of weeks where there was something about Veggie Pod before you go and buy it. If you're unsure, send me an email and I'll let you know. Unfortunately, that's only for members of my supporters club. I don't care. Gardening makes me so happy. I don't smoke or drink. I just buy plants. Absolutely. I mean, I used to smoke years ago. I used to drink a lot as well. But gardening, for me, is something I like to do. I said that when I smoked. I said that when I drank. But I like gardening. I don't care if I have to, as long as I can afford to pay my bills and I can eat and everything. Growing your own, you can always eat. But there's always something I can spend money on in gardening, and I see it as an investment. Turbo Stream, I'm saving money by keeping things simple. I use a pencil on my labels too. Yeah, keep it simple. That's another very good one. From coming onto this, it's cost me a fortune, as many people have come up with great ideas I like to try. It's great. Yeah, definitely that. Digwell has got my Veggie Pod has paid for itself over and over. Yeah, that's what I found with my Veggie Pod. It paid for itself within the first year, easy. Just for the amount of food that we grow in it and how easy it is to look after. Yes, Stuart Jackson, that's another thing I had to try, the Veggie Pod. Veggie Pod are fantastic. I really have. Well, there's a reason that I talk so highly about them. Oh, just remembered a little tip. I use nail varnish remover to clean my labels. It removes most markers. I never knew that. I never knew. Yeah, I always remember my mum would use nail varnish to clean anything that was a bit stubborn. So remove markers. That's a good one. I've just completed the first week of being teetotal. Well done, Adrian. Very well done to that. Now, before we get on to more tips, you may well remember that a couple of weeks ago we were sowing microgreens, and let's have a look. let's bring the overhead. Oh no, hang on. You're not going to see anything like that, are you? Hang on. Just sorting this out. Bring up the overhead camera, and as you can see, this is, what is it? The fenugreek. I would say that is now ready for harvesting. Slightly smaller on this side, which you probably can't see unless I do this. Slightly lower on this side, but definitely a lot thicker on this side. So let's give it a try and see what it tastes like. So I've just picked off a nice big handful like that. Oh yeah. That's delicious. I think that fenugreek, or methi as the Indian name is, really do get that. If you've ever had a curry with that in, it really does taste of it. That's really nice. So I think we'll be making a curry over the next few days with that. But at the time, I also sowed a second one of basil. Now the basil is very slow at growing this time, very slow. So we've got a few just popping up there, but it's been a little slow. But never mind, we'll save that for another time. I'll probably sow some more microgreens, but that fenugreek, really nice actually. Probably said this before, but that's why only pencils are used in submarine escape compartments. It doesn't wash off. Absolutely, yeah. That's why I much prefer using pencils. Doesn't wash off, doesn't get blasted off in the sun, and so on. Treat yourself to some new plants, Adrian. Yeah, go for it, Adrian. Buy yourself some new plants just to, well done. Congratulate yourself for being teetotal. And Grow Veg is also saying, I'm just over 7 years, Adrian. The best thing I ever did. Fantastic. That's great, Adrian. Willpower, fantastic. And yeah, well done. You won't eat your tea. I've already had my tea. We have my tea before we go live. Otherwise, it's too late for us. Especially now we got this one. We're going to take it for a walk after. I stopped habitually drinking on the 23rd of June and only had the odd one or two wines with a meal ever since. Yeah, I very rarely have ever had a drink, in all honesty. Apologies, gang. I always watch a live show in half on a Sunday evening. Well, that's all right. At least you're here, and please do feel free to comment anytime. It's great to see you. As a first sowing, I'm thinking iceberg lettuce, radish, and beetroot. What does everyone grow at this time of year? So, yeah, I'll come to that in a minute, Ian. Once I've shown off the photos, I'll go through this, and we'll. I don't drink or smoke myself. I spend all the money on my allotment and get way more enjoyment. Methylated spirit works well for removing most inks. And thanks for the replies. It's been hard going, but I'm sticking to it. I even returned £40 of wine to Tesco's this week. Well done, Adrian. Well done. Right. Come here, then. She wants to come out. I can tell that much. She's just been a bit afraid. Let's have a look at some of the photos that have came in this week. Is it this one, if I remember correctly? Yes, it is. So, first of all, I've been sent some photos from Indio Garden Girl, Stephanie, I believe her name is. She sent us over some of her flowers, which just look stunning and very colourful. Obviously, in Idaho, slightly different conditions to what we have, and there's still plenty of flowers on show. I mean, just look at them. How beautiful do they look? And and Rebecca's, and some tomatoes as well, which I'm very jealous of because tomatoes have been a bit of a failure this year. Now, Stuart Jackson shared this photo, and he was drying chilies and asking, he strung up his chilies and asking how he should dry them. I think the reply that came back was, again, we mentioned this earlier with eggshells, pop them into an oven just as you finish cooking and let the residual, heat dry them out. Now, another money-saving tip that Stuart has shared is with getting more strawberry plants. So strawberries pot out runners, put those onto a pot and with compost and let the strawberry runners root, and you get yourself a lot more strawberry plants. As you can see, that's what he's been doing here. Now, Stephen, he has been cutting back his chilies in order to overwinter them and brought them inside. They look a bit scary at the moment, but the chances are by doing this and cutting them right back, they're going to survive the winter and end up with an early crop next year. Now, Ian Beddoes, who we were talking about earlier, this is what he has brought himself, the veggie pod, the small version. Looks fantastic, doesn't it? And it was a birthday and Christmas present to him. I think he can't wait to get it going. But I tell you what, you will not be disappointed with the veggie pod. And of course, Ian Beddoes always shares some jokes, which is his common thing. And this week he put up gardening, a fancy term for pulling weeds. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can see where he is coming from with that. Now, I mentioned that Ian Beddoes was asking what to sow in his veggie pod earlier. And I thought we'll go for that photo now, just so everyone knows what we're talking about when it comes to a veggie pod. So what I would recommend, lettuce is a good one, but you want to go for some of the winter lettuce, such as Atlantic Giant. No, not Atlantic Giant. Winter Destiny is a good one. That'll grow quite well over the winter months. Spinach can be a good one to grow in there as well. Land cress, it would be a really good one. There was one. Was it land cress that went out in this month's Seed Supporters Club? There was one of the Seed Supporter Club's seeds. I can't remember what it was now. It was land cress or something like that. That's a good one to sow as well. What else? Swiss chard. That would be a good one to grow in your veggie pod, although it does get quite big. Herbs. Let's not forget herbs. Basil, parsley, coriander, those sort of things. They'll go quite well on your veggie pod as well. Anybody else got any ideas? But of course, let's keep these money-saving tips going in. My microgreen radish were mostly used in tomato and mushroom soup. I was about to say that sounds delicious, but it's got mushrooms in it, and anybody who knows me knows I've got a mushroom allergy, so I won't discuss that. But tomato soup with that radish, I can see that being delicious. You want to come out, don't you? No. She wants to come out, but then she doesn't. Ian Beddoes, all three, when he was asking about what to grow in his veggie pod at the moment. That's definitely, all three were good ideas, but look for winter growing plants. My cress microgreens was used as a garnish on my corned beef hash today. That sounds delicious. I do like cress, actually. I think that's an unsung hero in many ways. So easy to grow. There's a reason we grow it as at school as kids. As you can see, she's finally came out. And Alison O'Brien, evening all. Hope you are well. Lovely to see you. Hope you are well too. What else have we got? Wash hands at Turbo Stream. I don't know what that's about. Digra, I have launched a support campaign. Oh, right. So, yeah. A weed is only a plant in the wrong place. Totally agree with that. A weed is only a plant in the wrong place. But sometimes a weed can be a good thing if it's in the wrong place. Volunteer potatoes, I always think they grow better when they popped up in the wrong place, when you haven't removed the potato from the year before. Nigel, laughing at the support campaign. I gave up a couple of years ago for 3 months, but lapsed with the onset of lockdown, etc. But now intend to stick to it. I do, after a week, feel more energetic and wanting to get on with things. Well, that's fantastic. I tell you what, Adrian, keep us posted. I think we will all try and support you with with your going teetotal. You know, I think that's a fantastic thing to do. So use it was landcress. It was landcress. I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was landcress. I couldn't remember off the top of my head. Dig Stumpy carrots in the veggie pod. Yeah, Amsterdam Forcing 3 was another good one you could sow in the veggie pod and should grow quite nicely. Grow Veg UK. Anyone else's Sunday been a complete washout? I'm in Lincolnshire, UK. No, we've had a good Sunday. I mean, Roxy and I went down to the allotment this morning. We did a few hours down there. We cooked a nice roast dinner and had a really good day. We've been lucky. We haven't had rain here, though, so that might be why. I didn't plant potatoes this year, but got loads. Well, I don't know how you ended up doing that then, Digwell. Ian, sorry. Been okay here today, thankfully, yeah. So, I've got another tip that's came in from young Stuart, which let's go through that and see his next seed-saving tip or money-saving tip.
I keep on about paper pots. This is how you make them. You can buy these. These are like £10, less than £10. You go onto Amazon, even less than that, and then you just get a supplement or newspaper, and then you just roll them up. Don't go too tight, otherwise you'll never get it off. You just make a couple of folds in the bottom, push that down, push, twist, and then one paper pot. Saves you an absolute fortune. And if you've got children, it's a really good activity for children to help their strength, their muscles in their hands. Right, I will speak to you again very soon. Thank you very much for watching.
Hang on, what's happened? Can you hear me? Hang on, what's happened? Huh? What? I'm still going. What happened here? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? I seem to have frozen for some reason. What's happened there? Yeah, I think you can still hear me. I don't know why I've frozen, but something's gone wrong. Let me try something. While we do that. I'll keep talking while I where am I? Let's try this quickly. No, that's not sorted it. So yeah, that was a good tip from let's see. Has that freed it up? No, that hasn't. God knows what's gone on here. Can hear you, but you've frozen. I've frozen. I'm having a lot of trouble this evening, aren't I? I'll try changing. No, that's not doing it. What has caused this? bloody technology. Try other camera. I'm trying the other camera. It's all in the same thing. Right. Let's try rebooting it and see if that makes any difference. No, there we go. We've sorted it. Everything's going wrong today. Yeah. There we go. We sorted it. Everything was just going one of those days, isn't it? Let's see. Right. I planted all my bulbs into pots ready to put in the ground in the next couple of weeks. Yeah, but see, actually, that's a good thing. I think I mentioned on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. I tend to buy they're not edible really, but tulips and daffodils. I will buy new pots each year, or new bulbs each year, which I pot into pots. But the old ones that were in the pots, I'll either put those in the ground or down on the allotment. So always then I feel like the newer bulbs, the better, or what would be the better looking flowers, are then in the pots and making a display, and the rest are sort of there for decoration, I guess. So that's another money saving tip I think I would share there. For one of them, Stuart, it's another brilliant idea. That's to do with the paper pots. Yes, brilliant idea. In fact, in this shed, I have got quite a few of those paper pot makers that my dad skillfully made, and perhaps later on in the year we'll try and do a competition where some people can win some, um, and see what happens. Just as a little idea. Apparently, Roxy, people can hear you. I know you've been sleeping a lot today, haven't you? What else? Frozen. Dog chewed the wire. I don't know what it was. I think it was the mixer, because I noticed. I wonder if it's because it's getting a bit atmospheric and it's out here in the shed all the time. I'm gonna have to try and add a dehumidifier or something here a bit more. Anyway. That's neither here nor there. Money saving tips. Keep your money saving tips coming in. Was there any more? My neighbour's moving house. She's given me a box of gardening goodies. One of those paper pot makers was in the pot. Yeah, paper pot makers are very useful. I think I remember they were very much the thing to buy a few years ago, and then people discovered you could actually use an old a drinking glass or something to make them as well, instead of those paper pots. The risk of that, of course, is that you smash a glass and you can't drink from it anymore. Don't mind Facebook crashing, but not the Veg Grower podcast. Yeah, it is annoying when things go wrong, but things do go wrong from time to time. Just keep talking, it will be fine. Blame the dog. All good now. Roxy wants the cat on the cam to be part of the show. She probably does, to be honest. She hasn't eaten much today, thinking about it. She's been sleeping a lot, so she probably is hungry thinking about it. You could sell the pot makers in your shop. Yeah, I could, but my dad was the one that made him, so I would have to cut him in on the profits, because that's only fair. And I've got to test them to make sure that they are a bit. When I sell something, I want to make sure it lasts. Not that I'm doubting they won't last, but I just want to make sure they do. So another money saving tip is to save as much cardboard as you possibly can get. This is something no doubt many of you have heard me say a lot of. I use the cardboard to suppress weeds, particularly with no dig, and I absolutely hoard every little piece of cardboard that I can get hold of, and I just lay that over my bed, onto which I add fresh compost. Now, I could use weed suppressing membrane, of course, and that stuff works quite well, but that involves buying it. And I've also got a bit of a love-hate relationship with weed suppressing membrane, in that I've had it where my neighbours have used it and it's got blown off and shredded in my gooseberry bushes about 2 years ago. And I'm still picking out these little black ribbons of this black plastic. It's very annoying in that regard, but it is part of what's happening. So that's another money saving tip I just want to share with everybody. Cardboard, get loads of it, save it, use it as a suppressant. I use it. I'm going to be using it certainly over the winter, all around even my trees and my bushes. Again, I've got particularly bad couch grass on the allotment, as I moan about all the time. Cardboard, how many times does stuff come arrived in cardboard, and is the cardboard really necessary? Stuart Jackson, another money saving idea is pop buckets out in the spring and summer to collect rainwater. This is great if you're on a meter. Yeah, I think even if you're not on a meter, I think it's worth saving as much rainwater as you possibly can get. This is going to be one of my little rants that I have. Anybody who watches this knows I sometimes go on a bit of a rant about rainwater. Why is it? It falls from the sky onto our rooftops, goes down our gutters, down our drains, and out to sea, not being used. Yet, we pump perfectly good, fresh, treated drinking water to our houses to flush our toilet with. Does that seem a bit cockeyed to you? Now, personally, I have, how many have I got? 15, I think it is, water butts in my house. 4 just behind here, and they all get used. And we never use tap water in the garden anymore. We tend to just use rainwater, and it does well. Even washing the car and the van, we use rainwater because it's free and it's better, in my opinion. It's better. Grow veg. Talking about cardboard, I save all the cardboard from my business and bring it home to shred it. I add it to my massive compost, and the amount I go through is impressive. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, cardboard is a natural item. It was once alive. It's organic, but to see it wasted just going into the bin, it's such a good thing, especially at suppressing weeds, because I just think the suppressing weeds, rather than buying that black membrane, which, it's not a bad price, but it is a bit pricey. But, cardboard does just as good a job. It will biodegrade, so it won't last as long, but it does do the same sort of thing. Stuart loves it when I get on my soapbox. Sorry, I do apologise if that does anyone. I do that with shredded paper from the office at work for my compost bin. I can't hone without loads. I come home with loads. They all think I'm nuts at work. Well, funny enough, I get items from work that come in boxes that are also in shredded paper to protect the items in the boxes. And that shredded paper I then take down the allotment, goes in my compost bins down there, and helps me make my compost, as I like to think of it. So I don't think you're nuts at all for doing that. I do a similar sort of thing. Again, it's one of those things that just gets wasted. And I don't know if anybody is watching from the Brighton area. Brighton at the moment, when the bin men have gone on strike, and for the last 2 weeks the bins haven't been emptied, and the rubbish in the street is piling up. But I can guarantee you a lot of that will be compostable and therefore not needed to go down on there. Belly sitting, Richard, when I cut the weed membrane, I cut it bigger than the bed, then fold the 4 edges and stick with duct tape. Has lasted for years now, covering my beds for winter. Yeah, I mean, weed membrane does have, it is good at what it's meant to do, and it is very good at that sort of thing. It doesn't last forever, and it is that plastic thing again. For me, the biggest problem that I have with the weed membrane is the fact that my neighbour used it, didn't weigh it down very well, strong winds came along, and it is shredded up inside my gooseberry bushes, and it is a nightmare to try and take up. They did apologise, so, they didn't do anything malice or anything about that, but it is just a little bit annoying in that regard. And the glue used in making cardboard is starch-based, and the worms love it. This is why it disappears so fast. Oh, well, I didn't know that. That is very useful. I know the inks they tend to use now are vegetable-based. So, the inks used to be a problem. Even in magazines, people used to say the inks were their concern. But actually, now they become more vegetable-based inks. They are more and more biodegradable. My mate in Portugal has to pay to have fresh water pumped up from the village. He collects rainwater and even filled his swimming pool with it. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that. Excuse me. Rainwater is a free resource, and effectively we do all drink rainwater. It's treated and comes to our house. I didn't know that, Digwell. Thanks. No, I didn't know that either. So thank you, Digwell. My money saving idea this year has been my old bike. I ride to and from the plot. Keeps me fit too. Yeah. I'm looking at trying to walk down to the plot a bit more in the summer months when after work, where I'll come home and have my dinner. We'll go out for a walk down to the plot. That's the idea. we've got a reason to go out walking now. Balicillion, try using a hot flame to melt a hole in the membrane. This is going back to that weed suppressor membrane, that plastic, which does work. Like I say, it does work well. But I've got a love-hate relationship. That's how I call it. I said this on another live stream I was watching earlier. It's a love-hate relationship with that. So, what any other money-saving tips that anybody has out there? Because I think we've still got more to go, and many more that we could be sharing. What I always think it's worth looking at, and I used to do this or try to do this, is keep a log of what you're spending a lot of money on. So when I did this quite well a few years back, but because I'm no good at keeping details or keeping logs, well, I noticed that I would spend a lot of money on compost, buying in bags of compost. So what I did is I worked out how much compost I bought throughout the year, and then I bulk bought that much compost. And I've had that stacked up here throughout this year. It worked really well. It saved me a bit of money. I could have done with a bit more, but by bulk buying compost that I had to buy, obviously I would prefer to have made my own compost, but bulk buying compost, I did save quite a bit of money. But that did mean I had to beforehand work out how much I would use throughout the year, which was something like half a ton of compost. That's a lot of bags, and I bulk brought that, kept that up here in my garden. And the other great advantage with that, by doing that, when I needed compost, I didn't have to rush out and buy some. So that's another tip I want to share. If you can bulk buy, do it. I have saved about £10 today with my paper pots. I've made 300 ready for half-term sowing. Yeah, but those paper pots that Stuart did a video about earlier, just goes to show how much money you can save and how many pots you go through. And the other good thing with those paper pots, you stick them in the ground, in the roots, and they will biodegrade and rot down where they are to go. There's a bit of time saving as well. Ian Meadows, saving tip is to stay out of the garden centre. Well, actually, I know Ian Meadows has mentioned that he goes to a cash and carry where he also saves money. So that is another thing to think about. If you can go to a cash and carry, it might work out to being a bit cheaper. All right, if you want to zap yourself in and appear on screen, I've added the link to the chat. If you're in the Facebook group, and you may not see it, I'm afraid, due to the way Facebook works. Just click the link. It'll access your camera. It'll access your microphone. And you can appear on screen. Alternatively, you can call in on 07307 135 174. On this little note, got to remind everyone to give a thumbs up, give a like, or whatever it might be to this video. Don't forget to click the notification bell or get notified every time we go live. I think that covers everything, because if I don't say it, I end up with an email telling me off. So get that out of the way now. Dave Ford, hi Richard, sowed my sweet peas today. Keep them on a shelf in a shed over winter and plant them out in spring. Great for growing runner beans next year. Yeah, sweet peas, that's a good one actually, because you can grow some sweet peas, and I know they always go to seed, always get seeds. You save your seed from them. We discussed saving seeds a few weeks ago, didn't we? You can save seeds, and you end up with more seeds for next year. You can always buy as a group of gardeners. I'm sure if you talk to your friends, they would love to save money. Well, that's funny enough, along the lines of what Money Boots Sir Nigel was saying earlier as well, about being in a community and being part of a group in order to do that sort of thing. Ian Meadows, off next week to get extra compost needed if they have any out. Usually all Christmas stock where gardening usually is. Don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on the garden centres and Christmas stock, because I've already had one rant today. We'll save that for another day. what was the another money saving tip I want to share with everyone as well. Now, this is one that takes a bit of preparation and bit of forethought. In fact, I'm talking it'd probably take you a good couple of years to get this going. I, on my allotment, have a hazel tree. Now, the hazel tree is grown, obviously, it produces hazelnuts, which we do like. They're edible. We love our hazelnuts. They're tasty and they're useful. But the other thing that they produce is hazel sticks. So I let them grow till they're nice and quite thick and tall. And then around November time, so next month, I will cut down the thickest branches just at the base, basically coppicing the tree. Now, those branches that I've cut off, branches is probably not the right word, but those bits that I've cut off, they need a bit of time to dry out, which I just leave them in the greenhouse to dry out. But then I can use those for growing things like beans up in the place of canes. Now, bamboo canes are okay. I think they're expensive these days compared to what they used to be. They don't last very long, I don't think, anymore. They tend to fall apart quite easily. And I think hazel sticks, there's just something about hazel sticks that I think they look a lot nicer in the garden, a bit more natural, a bit more naturalized. So yeah, if you want to grow a hazel tree for hazel sticks, go down to a garden centre, buy yourself a hazel tree, get it in the ground, let it grow for a couple of years, then just start coppicing a few of the branches every year. And what will happen where you've cut the branches, more stems will grow, producing more branches later on. Stuart Jackson, you can always buy. Oh no, we've said that one. Off next week. Oh no, I've said that one as well. Sorry, I thought we had more comments coming in, but we haven't. So my apologies for that. Just checking the phone is on. 07307 135 174 if you do want to call in. And speak to myself and Roxy. Hopefully, Roxy isn't going to be in here all the time, just to let everyone know. I know she's very distracting, certainly for me, but she's here today. Don't make the same mistake as me and don't use willow for bean sticks. It will root in the ground. No, don't use willow. Do not use willow. Do not use willow. Do not use willow. And I repeat, do not use willow. Willow is incredibly invasive because it is so easy to reroot once it is stuck in the ground. It is an incredibly amazing plant in that regard. And in fact, I've heard of people who have been basically taking branches of willow, grinding it up into a powder, and then using it as a rooting hormone because it's so good. So when somebody takes their takes cuttings, they use the rooting hormone from this willow tree, and it causes, or should in theory, cause the roots, the cuttings, to take a lot easier. So that's actually something I think we might discuss next week, if taking cuttings. I think that's going to be, we're going to do that. We're going next week discuss taking cuttings. It's a great way, I think, of again saving money, expanding your stock. Grow rosemary is something I do that quite often with, taking cuttings, and that way I can get more rosemary plants out of it. Rebecca says, well, that's incredible. I think that's talking about the hazel sticks. I like to think it is, or the willow sticks, one of the two. But yeah, it is incredible what you can do if you start putting your mind to things and looking at things a little bit differently. Do you want to go in there now? No, she don't. She's just a bit attention seeking now. She's been asleep all day. Right. Any more money saving tips that anybody has to share? I'm sure there must be more that you've all been thinking about or sharing. I've just remembered one more that I have. Turbo Stream, which we'll go through next week. I'm useless at cuttings. They always die off. That's all right. I'll go through a way of stopping that. Great idea, Richard. Cutting taken. I've always found it hard to do cuttings. There you go. That's next week sorted. Willow is good ground up, as you say. It's like aspirin and creates a growth and defense reaction. Yes, willow. I mean, we got rid of our willow tree because it was in the wrong place, but it does have a lot of good stuff about it. It can act as an aspirin. In fact, it was traditionally used as a pain reliever, but I'm not a medical person. I'm not saying to do that. It's just part of history. But it is also very good, as I say, for making rooting hormone. Rebecca, I love taking cuttings, especially dahlias, because they can be quite expensive. Now, there you go. I don't want to kiss, thank you, Roxy. There you go. Yeah, that's another money-saving tip. Money-saving tip. Take cuttings. Take cuttings, saves a few quid on everything else like that. British garden centres had a great deal of patio planters, £20 each, £70 or so in Waitrose. But this comes back to what we were saying earlier about going into a garden centre at the right time of year and to save some money. It is amazing just how much of a discount they put on things. I should also say, actually, a good money-saving tip, well, I think is a good money-saving tip, is slightly, I'm slightly biased, actually, but for £5 a month, you can become a supporting member of the Veg Grower podcast. Now, this is primarily to support my podcast, but it also goes on to support the live show. I don't normally advertise it on here, but it just seems fitting as we're talking about saving money. Each month, you get at least 6 packets of seeds that can be sown that month. And I think if you were to buy those 6 packets of seeds, they would cost you more than a £5. I've also got some discount codes. Some are in the pipeline that you can use to save more money as well. That's very in the infancy at the moment. And added to that, you get a couple of extra podcasts each week. So I'll put that out there as a way of advertising that. Money Boots is on Mick Pulteney's Zoom sesh now. There you go. He's on 2 things at once, like he always does, young Nigel. B&M are similar and sell off at the end of summer. Yeah, Wilkinson's, B&M, I think the range sometimes do it as well. Garden centres certainly do, just to get rid of stuff. I was going to say that the Supporters Club was my best money-saving idea. Stuart is a member of the Supporters Club, so there you go. That's from his own mouth as well. Now, I did think of another money-saving tip that I want to share with you all. And then I've got one more video. Now, my other money-saving tip is to do with mulches. And again, this is something I've talked about a lot, grass clippings. Now, some people use straw, which means you have to spend money buying straw in. And that's okay. I didn't have much luck with straw. I found the couch grass still grew with it. But I use grass clippings and I just run around with the lawnmower, all those grass clippings, and mulch that around my plants, around my beds, and it's a free mulch. Costs me nothing. And better than that, it saves water, it saves nutrients by locking it into the soil and not letting it get washed away. And also, it produces the amount of weeds, and therefore reduces the amount of time I spend weeding. Another money-saving tip that I have there, grass clippings as a mulch. Nick's allotment. Hi, Richard and everyone. Hello to you. Hope you are well. Lovely to see you. Now, I've got one more video from Stuart. We've got 2 more that he sent in, which I will save for next week. But, or did I set this up, actually? Hopefully, this is going to work. Let's find out.
Welcome to our school garden. So I've got autumn.
I just realised why I forgot about it. When he filmed it in portrait instead of landscape, which is why I'm saving the other 3 for next week so I can edit those out into landscape. So sorry, Stuart. Got all excited there thinking it was going to be a video, and actually I forgot that it was in portrait. We'll do that. We'll save those 3 for next week. Not become a member of Supporters Club, as I don't think I have room to grow all the seeds. That's fair enough, Ian, but you'd be surprised how much you can do and what have you. I think that's a valid point. I mean, 6 packs. I've had a few people say it's they find it a bit too much keeping up with the seeds, but I'd sooner that than not enough. I have started using grass clippings as a mulch too. Yeah, grass clippings and leaves, fantastic mulch. I've got no more biscuits for you, I don't think. There you go. Yeah, grass clippings, lawn, leaves, nice, cheap and easy mulch. I can record them again if you need to. Sorry, still learning. So I'll edit it into so I can play it. I mean, I could play it, but everyone's just got to then sit there watching with their head on the side. So I didn't want to do that. I should have planned ahead and checked them out. Right. Any more money saving tips? Any more money saving tips? Not going into a garden centre. I think I saw somebody else come up. Same. That's another thing this show has put me onto. Grass clippings. Yeah. I'm a big fan. I started doing it last year because it's such a good result. And I've always been fascinated with mulches. I've just found straw didn't quite work very well. Grass clippings just did work fantastic for me. One, because I'm mowing the lawn anyway. I've got the grass clippings there. And two, it works. It's saved a lot on the weeds. Do you want to go in there? Saved a lot on the weeds, saved a lot on the moisture. There we go. She's gone back in there. Let me show you one. Let's see if we can see it on camera 3. One way. There you go. She's gone back into her crate. It's very distracting having a little puppy, isn't it? Yeah, grass clippings, fantastic. I've just found them really fantastic. I've gone on so much about them that I feel like I'm over egging them. But I think once you start doing it, you will not look back. Maybe I should join anyway. It's up to you, Ian. I'd love to have you as a member, of course. And I'll, we try and make sure you have enough plants to grow. But it's up to you. I don't want anybody who doesn't think they can do it to do it, but completely up to you. Hi, Nick's Allotment. Hi, Adrian from Nick's Allotment. So yeah, other money saving tips. Getting free horse manure. I think somebody suggested that as well. Something that I did quite a lot when we went into the first lockdown and I went on to furlough. A lot of places weren't open either, so I couldn't get a lot of the things that I needed. But I started sort of building things out of scrap wood. I built tables, I built compost bins, just from wood that I had lying around. Now, usually, I probably would have gone and bought wood just to build these projects. And I've got to say, using the scrap wood worked really, really well. Normally we have a load of scrap wood because we have open fireplaces. Ash from that is a good source of potash. Another money-saving tip. Sprinkle ash onto your beds, especially if you've got tomatoes. But all that scrap wood, last year I just looked at it and went, I want to build a table. Partly because I wanted someone to sow seeds and set cameras up and stuff. So I used all that scrap wood and I built a table. Still going today. It perhaps not the nicest thing, but it does the job. It'll look fantastic on the allotment, which is where it's going to go. So yeah, before you buy anything, just look around and see what you've got that you can do with it, and see what you've got. What about the Northern Ireland people joining? So the Northern Ireland, I'm hearing through the grapevine there's something going on that we might be able to actually send you seeds pretty soon. It's a difficult one for you guys in Northern Ireland because I'm not technically selling you seeds, but I think technically what I should have to do to send you one pack is pay £125 each time, and I can't afford that. So what I'll do, I'm going to try something. I'm still looking into it and trying to get the answer, but I know there's some negotiations going on at the moment. So from a legal standpoint, we could soon end up being able to send you some there in Northern Ireland. We technically, as I'm not selling seeds, there's a bit of a grey area, but it's very, very tricky. I would, Ian. I've got no more room, as you all saw last week. You just find room. That's very kind of you to say. You can always pass on seeds you don't use, Ian. Yes, we actually have a forum for seed swap on the veggroundpodcast.co.uk for supporter club members only. So if you do want to swap seeds, go in there and swap seeds that way as well. I built a 6-prong onion set planter from scraps. It works exactly right. You'll be amazed just how much you can change. What I discovered last year when I was in that first lockdown is that necessity was the mother of invention. I wanted to do things like build a table, and I just went, oh, I can do this, I can do that, with what I had lying around. Like I say, usually I would just go and buy it, but yeah, see what you have lying around and see what you can use first. Rules are changing for Northern Ireland, Richard. Yes, I think rules are changing, but until they change, I don't want to chance it. We understand. Thank you. I do really wish I could do more for you guys out there. I really do, out there in Northern Ireland. Just hope it's sorted for the sowing season. We'll love to grow together. Yeah, I hope it's sorted for the growing season as well. It is incredibly frustrating, and in my eyes, shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have happened. You're part of UK, should be under the same as UK in my eyes. Now, I know some people would disagree on me on that, but I just think it's a pain to say the least. Yeah, so we were talking about necessity being the mother of invention, and I'm gonna Digwell, please do please do send me a picture of your 6-prong onion set planter from scrap. I think I've seen it. Please send us a picture, perhaps as a show we can do in a few weeks' time would be what you've made out of scraps, especially as we're going into the winter, and we can start thinking about what we can build, what we need to build out of what we have available for the growing season. Like I've said time and time again, winter for me is when I do a lot of my infrastructure work. It's when I start to build my beds and stuff like that. So I always feel winter is a better time for doing builds and things like that. And perhaps that's something we can look at as it won't be next week because we're doing the cut-ins next week. The week after that is Halloween. So perhaps a week after that, we can do what you've made out of scraps. We'll do. It was on a recent video, Richard. I think I've seen it. I do think I've seen it. So yeah, but that would be great. Yeah, we'll do that in 3 weeks' time. I'm gonna have to keep writing these ideas. Yet again, next week. Not next week. Sorry, next week we are doing the. I forgot what it was. I said it just now. Oh, the cut-ins. Taking cut-ins. So if anybody has any cut-ins that they want to take, we'll try and do them a bit like the microgreens. We'll do them together sort of thing and grow along. The week after that, Halloween, I want some pumpkin recipes. Anybody has any good pumpkin recipes they would like to share? Fantastic if you've got a video. That would go down really well and would be much appreciated as well. Because I've got another one of my soapbox moments. I always find people who are buying pumpkins, growing pumpkins just for carving is a bit wasteful. I'd sooner people grow pumpkins for food, in my opinion. Now, I don't believe it's right that I turn around and say people what they can and can't do, of course. People want to carve pumpkins, fine. I just think it's a little bit wasteful when there's so many hungry people in the world. Just slightly on my soapbox there. Making your own comfrey and nettle feed. I found it better than feeds I bought, and it's free. Yes, absolutely. I love comfrey. I love comfrey, and it is a bit invasive. It does grow rather big, but it does make a fantastic feed. Just taking those leaves and sticking them in water for a few weeks until it all turns into a nice black thing. Any advice? This is from Anis McGowan. Hope I pronounced your name right. Any advice on a small polytunnel? I only have room for a small one in our garden. Are they easy to build? I think we've discussed polytunnels before, and what I've always said with polytunnel is buy the best that you can afford. Now, if you can only fit a small one, I think people like, is it Polytunnels Direct or somewhere like that? They do some very good polytunnels. They are a bit more pricey. I would not, in my opinion, in my experience, I would never go and buy one from the likes of Wilkinson's or one of those ones that I feel are a bit like tent poles, the way they go together. Only because I've been on some windy allotments and they've never lasted. So what I would say is buy the most or the best that you can afford, the strongest that you can afford. Is my top advice. When I work it out, I've bought a couple of those cheap end of the market polytunnels in the past, and they haven't. I've got very windy today. Apologies, and they haven't even lasted a year each time. But when I work out the amount of money that I spent on both of them, I could have probably bought a decent polytunnel, which probably would still last to this day. So yeah, definitely buy the most or the best that you can afford. Go to a good company, read the reviews, ask around in gardening forums. People are mostly helpful, I will say, and ask for experience or see photos. I know a few people out there have got polytunnels, and they're probably a bit more liked in my experience with polytunnels. So I will be interested to know if anybody else has had a more positive experience. I use dock leaf tea. I've never heard of that one, but that's certainly one I think would be a good dock leaf, because dock is a what do they call it? A bit like comfrey. Dynamic accumulator. That's the word I'm looking for. Dynamic accumulator. So the roots go down nice and deep, and they pull up some nutrients from lower down into the soil and use it in the leaves. And then when you make it into a tea, those nutrients then become all those nutrients then become available for the next plants higher up in the soil. Slightly geeky there, but I'm pleased to know what dynamic accumulator means. I thought the whole thing of carving up pumpkins is an import from America. Well, it actually started, it's actually a bit Gaelic, but it was originally with Swedes. Excuse me. Swedes and turnips, originally from Ireland and Scotland. And then when the Americans were discovered, and they took Halloween and they discovered these pumpkins, they found the pumpkins to be a lot easier to carve than Swedes and turnips. So yeah, that there is some element of truth in that. Nettle feeds, do you use just the leaves? Thanks. I tend to use, I just cut the nettle plant down at the root, fold it up and just plonk it all in there. But when I first made nettle tea, this is going back when I was about 12 years old, I did just use nettle leaves, just the leaves, put it into a bottle, covered in water, and left that for months until it turned a bright green liquid. There was nothing of a leaf left. It probably is better to just use the leaves, but I did use the stalks, or I have used the stalks as well. But that's more out of just being quick and timing. Thank you. Sounds like good advice from Anis. You are most welcome. Our school polytunnel is First Tunnels. Very good, and do a small one. Yeah, there you go. First Tunnels, that's another company I was trying to think of. Dig well, green fingers. I was advised to use the most prolific weed in your area, in my case, docks. Well, in my case, it probably would be couch grass, but I don't think that would necessarily be a good for fertilizer. Use the whole plant, Stuart. Yep, that's exactly what I do with nettles and comfrey. As long as the cheap polytunnel is made from a strong frame, when the cheap cover goes, it can be covered with a proper cover and a proper door made instead of a zip door they come with. Absolutely, yeah. And that's what I found. The actual, or the cheaper polytunnels that I've bought in the past, the actual covering has been okay. It's been the frame that has let them down. So buy a very strong frame. Nettle feed. I made fermented nettle tea with brown sugar, and it made a concentrated feed. That's a very interesting idea. I haven't made any. Well, I made comfrey feed, which will be used next year. But I used to, when we were allowed more than 2 water butts, I used to have some big water butts I just filled up with water in these feeds to use as my feed. But we're only allowed 2 water butts on the allotment now, so I can't do that so well. But instead, what I've got is a little tub that I fill up with comfrey and water to make nettle feed. But the adding brown sugar sounds like an interesting idea as well. Well, a couple of minutes to go before we close up this evening. So if anybody has got that last tip they want to get in, then please do right now. I think that's interesting that we're talking about polytunnels as we're talking about money-saving tips. But when I think about it, my experience with polytunnels of not buying the most expensive that I could buy or could afford and buying the cheapest was a waste of money. Had I brought spent the money where it needed to be, it would be right. Digwell, right, I better get going and sort out some cuttings or have nothing to chat about next week. LOL. Yes, next week will be cuttings. I'm going to write that down so I don't forget. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining me this week. Roxy and I have had a great time, as always. Been interested in chatting and sharing these ideas of how to save a few quid in the garden. I think in summary, what we're looking at is make compost, save rainwater, make leaf mold, chat with other gardeners to share seeds, share cuttings, make friends with the stables to get free horse manure. Excuse me. What other tips have we got out there? There's so many. Grow hazel for hazel trees, so on and so on. Lots of ideas, I think, that we have. Stuart has said, if you look on Facebook Marketplace for a polytunnel, then hopefully you only need to buy a cover. Another money-saving tip there as well. Fermented feed is very popular at present. Comfrey, nettles, docks, and more. I keep hearing about molasses as well, which is something to do with that as well. But I've not looked into it well enough to find out more. Brilliant show. Richard, see you next week. You are most welcome. Lovely to see you. Adrian, bye, Richard, and see you all next week. Most welcome. Thanks, Richard. See you all next week. Most welcome. Nick's a lot. Lovely to see you. Goodbye, everyone. Hope to see you all next week. Ibelez, well done, Roxy. You deserve a big treat tonight for your input. Yes, she's asleep again. Asleep again. Anyway, let's wrap up. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. It's been a blast as always. We will be back again next Sunday at 6 p.m. live on Facebook, live on YouTube, where we will be doing cuttings. We're going to do those live on the show and show you how I do them. I'll take a collection and go through that next week. Don't forget, if you've got any videos, please do send them in. WeTransfer.com, richard@veggrowerpodcast.co.uk. Send me your emails, richard@veggrowerpodcast. Post your pictures in our Facebook group. Sign up to be a Facebook group. Become a supporter member and all that stuff. And don't forget to like, share, click the bell for notification, etc., etc. Until next time, please take care.